You two were never tempted to use your platform to go into politics yourself?
Joke of the year. Well done.
Matt, we are very much of the opinion that the kind of people that should be running this country wouldn't be seen doing it for a million. I think the Prime Minister's job is hugely underpaid for what we're expecting of him stroke her. Most of them, we're not big fans of politicians. They're all in it, either side. They jump sides, they change colours. Quite frankly, I wouldn't trust any of them.
No, they speak
and I wouldn't want to join that family.
in the way that, they are full of what comes out of a horse's bottom.
Oh, well, let's leave it.
Most
Let's
of the
draw
time.
let's draw a line under that there.
Yeah, I think probably best move on, yeah.
Well, in London, Steph and Dom are here to talk about being on the show. Morning, Steph and Dom.
Good morning, Matt.
Nice to have you both with us. Now, tell me first of all, how did you end up on Gogglebox from the beginning?
Well, we'd just done a show called Four in a Bed, and I think
there's a bed and breakfast show
on that was a bit strange. Again, I think a little unexpected, and made by Studio Lambert. So we were literally approached to ask if we'd go on it, and of course, why not? It sounded strange, watching TV in our own home. What's not to like, really? I mean, it could have gone anywhere, but it ended up being the phenomenon that it is today.
And Steph, you were both a bit of a phenomenon as well, mainly because, I have to be honest, in the Chorley household, if you're watching telly of an evening, it's quite nice to do it with a glass of wine.
Well, indeed, I think it's rude not to.
Were you surprised, Steph, by the reaction and the fact that actually it became a huge hit really quickly, as we were just hearing from Stephen Lambert, and has been for such a long time, that the novelty factor hasn't worn off? There's clearly something there. People really get to know and like the characters.
Yes, I think they invest in them. And, I remember people saying, I feel like I know you. I feel like I'm your friend because, I spend Friday night with you with a glass, watching the shows that I've either watched or I haven't, and I'll decide whether I'm going to watch it or not based on, I think somebody asked a politician once, what do you think about this, that and the other? And he said, I don't know, I haven't watched Gogglebox yet.
Yeah. And that's a way of getting into it. Well, let's talk about politics then, Dom. You got from Stephen was making quite clear, he thought that the news and politics was a key part of this. So it wasn't just watching sort of entertainment shows. And you just had a free rein to say what you liked about the politicians?
Very much so. The news was always very difficult because obviously the requirement is that we're commenting on it, and usually the clips were quite short
and boring.
So we had to sort of really quite concentrate very hard. Sometimes watch it 3 times to be able to understand exactly what's said before. If I said something, you didn't hear the next bit.
Yeah.
And yes, it was very important part of the show. I mean, the whole cast, pretty much everybody was liked, but we were all tokens from all walks of life.
Yeah.
If ever there's been a show of, we've got the whole country's demographic, that was it.
Yeah.
And so everybody sort of thought, okay, well, this is what these people are thinking, this is what those people are thinking, which is right, because as Stephen said, it's not scripted. If it were scripted, I think it could be a very dangerous program. But as Stephen says, you can't script a show like that. You can't have somebody write the jokes. You can tell it's just the British people's natural humour that we take the mickey, or, we'll say something rude about someone's hat if we feel it appropriate. And if we don't, we won't.
And I think as a result, it became a very inclusive show, because people were sitting nodding their heads or not, shaking them, that you were having a conversation that they agreed with or didn't. But, they felt that it was a conversation with them. and that, they felt validated if they did agree with, the majority of the Goggleboxers.
Well, I suppose also more than that to some extent, Steph, it's sort of the opposite of an echo chamber. Rather than people think, well, everyone agrees with me, whether it's on,
of course,
who should have gone out of Strictly or what you think of Theresa May, that actually you do get those things where someone, maybe you two might say, oh, I can't stand them. And then the next person comes along and says, I just feel sorry for them, or, they've done their best. And actually having that chat, because we do focus groups monthly on the show, and the reaction we get from listeners half the time, who are these people? Well, they're the British public. That's the whole point, isn't it? Is finding people that you don't always agree with. And actually, that's fine. You don't need to have a big row about it. Did you have Nigel Farage come and stay in your hotel once?
We did a show. Yes, it was initially meant to be a pilot of Steph and Dom Meet, and we did meet Nigel Farage, and a very nice chap he was. And I have no problems about saying that. But one of the issues probably for us is that people automatically assumed that we had aligned ourselves with Nigel and the UKIP party, which wasn't the case. We purely and simply executed an interview, pretty, not quite like Oprah Winfrey and Princess. But it wasn't quite that. Well, it was quite revealing, and he was a very charming man, a really very nice man. And funnily enough, he and I had quite a lot in common. But that doesn't mean to say for a minute that I agreed or disagreed with his politics. And one of the things that comes out of the show is everybody's point of view will say, oh, I don't like him, but he's got a good point, or I don't like her, or I really like her, but I think she's wrong on this point, which I think is something only the British people off the hoof can say and point out, because no disrespect to journalists, they have a fixed agenda of what they're trying to get across. And if a journalist doesn't like someone, that can get in the way. But through the form that is Gogglebox, we have the ability to say, to pick up on each other and go, well, it doesn't matter if you don't like him.
Yeah.
Is what he's saying right, good, incredibly stupid? Is he a liar? All those factors we have the ability to filter out because we're not scripted, or nobody's scripted.
You two were never tempted to use your platform to go into politics yourself?
Joke of the year. Well done.
Matt, we are very much of the opinion that the kind of people that should be running this country wouldn't be seen doing it for a million. I think the Prime Minister's job is hugely underpaid for what we're expecting of him stroke her. Most of them, we're not big fans of politicians. They're all in it, either side. They jump sides, they change colours. Quite frankly, I wouldn't trust any of them.
No,
and I wouldn't want to join that family.
In the way that, they are full of what comes out of a horse's bottom.
Oh, well, let's leave it.
Most of the time.
Let's draw a line under that there.
I think probably best move on, yeah.
Steph and Dom, really good to speak to you, to get your take on being on Gogglebox.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Nice to have you with us. From Steph and Dom now, we are off to Chipping Barnet.
Yeah. Hello, Matt.
Josh, are you there?
Yes, I'm there. Can you hear me?
I can, yeah. Josh Tapper, former Goggleboxer. But you are now looking to become an MP, to swap Gogglebox for the ballot box.
Well, I think for sure, and I agree with so much of what Steph and Dom actually were just saying about, being actually sitting on the sofa and hearing so many diverse points of view from across the country. I think what it really showed was that, yes, we all have lots of diverse backgrounds, views, cultures to celebrate. But I think what Gogglebox does a really great job of is recognizing you can have those different perspectives, but actually there's so much common ground between these different cultures, backgrounds across the country and these different families. And actually, I think one of the things about being on Gogglebox from quite an early age.
Yes. Yeah, so how old were you when you started?
I was 15 when I started. So spent most of my teenage years on on the show. And that meant that I was watching news and finding out more about current affairs more than I probably would have otherwise.
I was wondering that. Did your interest in politics and current affairs come from the fact that Gogglebox made you watch it?
I think it definitely accelerated it because it meant that I was in touch with things that were going on. You know, I was regularly watching things, whether it was Brexit, whether it was the 2015 general election, the 2014 Scottish independence referendum, all of these key moments in recent political history. You know, we were watching it weekly, and I was sitting down with my family and I was having disagreements with them, and it was provoking conversation. And, you know, for me, it wasn't directly related to Gogglebox. When I was at school, I found that the education system, I don't think it's fit for purpose in many, many ways. And I did an apprenticeship. I didn't go to university. And I feel strongly that we need good alternatives to university, and that everyone has talent that they can offer to this country. And the education system needs to be able to provide those opportunities. And we need to have those opportunities after school as well for all of those young people. And for me, I think that the House of Commons doesn't currently represent the full breadth of people who don't go to university in this country. And I would love to see more of that representation, especially as we move forward. And, you know, the future of skills is looking to be high on the agenda. And I think it's important we have people from different educational backgrounds sitting around the table to make those decisions as well.
Well, as someone who didn't go to university, I wholeheartedly agree, Josh. So you threw your hat in the ring to be the Labour candidate in Chipping Norton, but that didn't prove successful, did it? Do you think that being on Gogglebox helps or hinders your political ambitions?
It's a good question. I don't think it does either. So I don't think it gives me an edge in many ways, but I also don't think it's, you know, I don't think it's a massive hindrance. But I think what people want to see from candidates, what people want to see from MPs is a track record, you know, of people that are willing to fight for their community, people who are willing to stand up and get things done in the House of Commons. And whether or not, you know, I've been on Gogglebox, I think that's what people are really actually looking to see when selecting and electing their MPs.
Gogglebox was an idea we had that we suggested to Channel 4 at the end of a meeting where we were pitching them a whole bunch of ideas, and we didn't think they would take it seriously, but one of them did, one of the commissioning editors that we were talking to, and he gave us some money to try and prove the concept would be one that would work. And we went away and we created a little tape, and at first we weren't quite sure whether it was a TV review show or whether it was a kind of in the taster tape, the cameras moved around and followed the people making tea and sort of made a little docusoap about their lives as well as watching the television. And then we realised that's not what it is. It's got to present as a TV review show, but its appeal comes from the fact that you get to know everybody and they become characters that the audience loves. And it's the fact that they are reacting to the same stimuli, whether it's an entertainment show or the news, and you see the variety of their comments, and you listen to them, and you also hear and see their differences, and it's very entertaining. The big challenge was the fact that it is a comedy, but we've got very little time to film and edit it, so we weren't sure that was possible to do. But 10 years on, we've obviously cracked it.
And before it launched, there was some of the coverage was a bit sniffy. You know, Channel 4 have run out of ideas. All they've got now is to film people watching telly, and now it's one of their biggest shows.
I know. Well, I think it's because the idea of it does sound a bit crazy. And so when it was announced before it went on air, people did say, oh my God, this is the end of Western civilization. But people liked it very quickly, and they realized that it was actually rather entertaining. And that first series, there were only 4 episodes in the first series, but every episode was more popular than the previous one. And that's quite unusual for a new show. Most shows sort of launch big and then they fall down a bit. This one was building its audience, which gave Channel 4 the confidence to reorder it, and then subsequently to move it into their very exposed Friday night 9 o'clock slot, where it's worked.
And at what point was the news always part of it, and politics? I mean, clearly politics 2012, 2013, 2014 wasn't as mad as it has been recently. At what point did you realise that actually this was quite a good? This wasn't just were people shocked by EastEnders or laugh at Michael McIntyre? This was a view into the psyche of the electorate.
Yeah, news was crucial to the show right from the beginning, and we realised how interesting it would be to see our cast reacting to the news stories and to politicians. I just reminded that in the very first series, the cast had to watch a BBC documentary called The Irresistible Rise of One Boris Johnson. Sorry, there was a click. So I start it again because I think
yeah, that'd be great. Yeah,
emails came in. News was always crucial to Gogglebox right from the very beginning. We realised how interesting that would be, and it was the mix between entertainment and news that was so key to the idea. It was that what's extraordinary about Gogglebox is the way in which it changes mood so quickly. You can go from something that's very funny to something that's really quite moving and serious. But it was their reaction to politicians that we found particularly interesting right from the beginning. Is that going to be a problem every time my email comes in?
It should be okay. We'll try and persevere.
Okay. I suppose I can't switch off the emails because then you disappear. News was always going to be crucial to Gogglebox. We knew that right from the beginning, and I'm reminded that when we did the first series, they all watched in 2013 a BBC documentary called The Irresistible Rise of One Boris Johnson, in which the narrator asked whether the London mayor would eventually replace David Cameron at number 10. Now, while most of the cast thought he was too much of a buffoon to become Prime Minister, in their words, a waffler who doesn't know what he's doing, others, it turns out on that show back in 2013, were more astute. They said, well, he's actually very conniving, smarter than he looks, and there's a good chance he might get that job. Mr. Siddiqui said, he's just a piss take waiting to happen. And it turned out he was true.
And how do you handle that? Do you have to start worrying about, it's an entertainment show, do you have to start worrying about bias and balance? Or if everyone falls off their chair laughing at Theresa May's coughing speech, you don't have to find someone to say, well, actually, I thought it was very good. Or do you? I don't know. Do you start having pressure on you about it being balanced?
It's important for us that the show is seen to be balanced. I mean, the key to the show is the fact that the audience seems to reflect the key to the show is the fact that the audience reflects the diversity of Britain. And it would be terrible if they all, when it came to politics, all had one view. So I think we do try to look for a balance. It's not a diktat, and it's not something that people are using stopwatches to try to work out whether we're giving the same amount of time to one politician to another. But yes, we try to be as fair as possible, and we try to reflect the diversity of opinions. I mean, obviously sometimes they all think that a particular politician is terrible, but it's also interesting how they forgive a politician. I mean, right now with Matt Hancock on I'm a Celebrity, some of them are being very supportive of him. I mean, certainly Lee and Jenny, the couple in Hull, the friends in Hull, they disagree quite a lot. I mean, Lee thinks that Matt Hancock should be given no time, and Jenny's willing to be persuaded by him.
And I suppose those are conversations which we're all having while we're sitting and watching Matt Hancock in the jungle. And what about politicians? Do politicians ever complain or try to get on it? Do you ever have any interaction with political parties as a result of what's on Gogglebox?
Not really. I mean, occasionally parties have liked the way in which the cast have reacted to something, and they've clipped it and used it for their own sort of political messaging. I know the Labour Party's done that at least once or twice. I know that that David Cameron was encouraged by his head of press, Craig Oliver, to watch those bits of the programme where politics and Cameron were featured, and told him, you should see how people are reacting to what you're doing. And Cameron did, and often got drawn into watching the programme itself, and then said, I've got a country to run, I can't waste my time watching this.
And what about the future? Do you feel like at what point do you think politics might drop out of it a bit, or is it now part of the mix? You know, clearly Rishi Sunak's trying to make politics as boring as possible right now.
I mean, what we're trying to do in the show is all the time reflect what people are talking about. I think the charm of Gogglebox is that it reflects back the conversation the country's having that week. And a lot of the time people are talking about television, but a lot of the time they're talking about what's in the news. And therefore we'll never take the news out. I mean, right now people are worried about the cost of living. And the key thing is not that they just talk about it, but that they talk about it in an insightful and often entertaining way. I mean, Pete, for instance, saying that, hang on, I wrote it down, I don't want to lose it now. Yeah, Pete and Sophie were joking about sticking the heating on. It's now the new showing off. I mean, you know, fucking hell, he's doing well. He's got the heating on. You can see the smoke coming out of his boiler flue. And Mika and Marcus wonder, you know, where do we go from here? We're already shopping at Lidl. So they're always talking about what it is that's of concern to the country this week. And they're doing that in a way that is insightful, very good at seeing through bullshit, and is often very funny.
And we've had obviously celebrity versions of Gogglebox. I mean, Giles Brandreth is probably the closest you've had to a politician. Oh, Jeremy Corbyn did it as well, didn't he? Is there any of the current crop of politicians you'd like to get on the Gogglebox sofa?
I think that it would be great to get any politicians on the Gogglebox sofa that's willing to come and do it. It's always interesting to hear what their candid views are when they're... I mean, what's so seductive about Gogglebox is the strange intimacy of people watching with their nearest and dearest in the intimacy of their home. You don't think that sounds like a big deal, but actually the people that you have in your home that you sit down and watch television with are quite a reflection of those people that you're closest to. And whenever we've done it with people who aren't really friends or don't have history with each other, it doesn't really work. And it therefore, whoever it is, and that's why Celebrity Gogglebox works so well, you do get a different insight into them by seeing them in their own homes and seeing them feeling relaxed and comfortable with people that they feel and have a very, close relationship with.
And just finally, because I need to know, none of it's scripted, is it? You don't have a team of people writing the jokes. It's literally they sit down and watch the shows. Tell me it's not scripted.
It's definitely not scripted. I mean, our cast would refuse to say scripted words. They would throw them back at you with contempt. And they wouldn't be very good at it because they're not actors. They are engaging, funny, insightful, ordinary people who are willing to do this week after week, and they definitely can't. Their wit comes from the spontaneous ability to come up with funny things to say. I mean, obviously, we edit the program; it doesn't go out unedited. We film an awful lot of material. Sometimes they will only watch a section of a program if it's like a very long film, or sections. But mostly they're watching the whole show. And obviously,
people continue to watch the whole of Gogglebox
it's
as well.
Important they all watch the same programs, obviously, because the program only works because you're intercutting them watching the same program.
Am I allowed to ask you finally who's your favourite Gogglebox family?
Oh, no, I don't think you are. I love them all equally, like a frog loves all its tadpoles.